Good morning. Sorry I'm late. I'm here though. I woke up a little late. Wife's still sleeping. Kids are up though. Kids going crazy. So me and my co-host Chewbacca back here. How y'all doing this morning? I have nothing planned as usual for Saturday morning. Let me see what's going on in the wicked wild world. Yeah. So we've done a couple of interviews. We had what y'all think about the interviews? I thought those went pretty well. I got Evolve messaging me at 6 a.m. Oh man. Hey, I got a good idea. This is always fun. I'm gonna go through our president's Twitter, his recent tweets. That's how I get all my news. Biden going full blown on his ads, huh? Really, dude? I guess this is a 4th of July ad. It said our nation was founded on a simple idea. We are all created equal. We've never lived up to it, but we never stopped trying. This Independence Day, let's not celebrate those words. Let's commit to finally fulfill them. Why is it that they always want to keep the narrative going? You know, the negative, divisive narratives that happen in our society. They just want to just keep on massaging that wound. You know what I mean? It's interesting. I'm sure the other side is probably doing the same thing. I don't get this one, but I'm not seeing any. Oh, here's Joe Jorgensen. Our founders believed in limited government and individual liberty. I want to return America to those founding ideals, but I need your help. Yeah, she's got to actually raise money. She just doesn't have a bunch of $1 million donors throwing money at her. Taxation is theft, which is at taxation theft on Twitter. They just tweeted out taxation is theft. If you're ever wondering what exactly taxation is, it's theft. And if you're wondering what theft is, it looks really similar to taxation. Oh, happy 4th of July, everybody. It is 4th of July, right? I can go put my flag out front. Celebrating America. Independence. No, I didn't barbecue and stuff last night either. Did just wake up, though. He didn't write this. My fellow citizens, America's history, America's destiny is in our hands. America's heroes are embedded in our hearts. America's future is in our hands. And ladies and gentlemen, the best is yet to come. That was from the White House. We stand tall, we stand proud, and we only kneel to Almighty God. Um, I've never seen him kneel to Almighty God either. Well, it is all over this. He's so the White House tweets it, and then Trump retweets it. Does the White House ever tweet anything that doesn't come from Trump? Let's see. America will be everything that our citizens have hoped for and everything our enemies fear. I wonder if that's not true already. It will be, so it never has been. So will it ever be? It's not ever going to be everything that everybody's ever wants it to be. Can't make everybody happy. You know what I mean? Because there's a whole slew of socialists out there that want ultimate government power where they don't have to work or do anything. And then there's a whole slew of anarchists out there that want to do whatever they want to do and don't want government to be involved. So you're not ever going to make both sides happy. So what exactly do you mean that America will be everything that our citizens have hoped for? 350 million people hope for a lot of different things. So, and everything our enemies fear. I don't know. Some enemies might be afraid of some cats. I don't want to have a bunch of cats running wild in our country. Hey, Zafin, good morning, man. I don't know what I'm doing this for. Throw some stuff on the grill, I guess. I don't drink anymore, so I don't know. Can't really have any. They've locked us down again. We ain't got no public gatherings or stuff anymore. Can't even do fireworks. They banned fireworks in El Paso because God forbid should we catch the desert on fire, I guess. At least that's the excuse they tried to make for it. I just think there was one industry that they forgot to crush during this pandemic, and that's the fireworks industry. So, we got to clamp down on them too. Can't have them unfairly not being restricted upon just because they only sell their products a couple of times a year. So, I don't know. But, yeah, I have no idea what I'm going to do. We believe in equal opportunity, equal justice, and equal treatment for every American. Well, I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. That's what you believe. I couldn't imagine you believing in an unequal opportunity, unequal justice, or unequal treatment of certain Americans. That would definitely be the wrong way to think as a leader. What? I got a notification? I was mentioned in a tweet. Oh, Debbie and Kate mentioned, added me in a tweet. Are you going live this morning? Yes, I'm just extremely late. And I had nothing planned. So I woke up and I'm like, it's 7:30. Am I going to go live today? And actually, if y'all hadn't, I think Whitney's Hero posted something on YouTube, and I was just going to, I don't know, jump on and stream later or something. I have no idea what I'm doing today, so I'm lost. See? Noisy kids out there. Makes it difficult sometimes. Makes it difficult. And sorry if I missed my my India, East Asia, Europe crew. Sorry about that. If y'all are already memes. And Mimi's is sleeping. Where am I? I'm working on, if Debbie and Kate are watching, I am working on trying to get camera and stuff, upgrades. And I got the circle light, but I'm trying to work on upgrading some stuff. This probably be my Of course, it'd be uh, the last stream I do from my little studio here for a week. All the way through next week. Next Tuesday, all the way through Sunday, I'm going to be in Orlando, Florida. So I'll definitely probably do some lives from my hotel room. Definitely going to be going live mobile. Hopefully, doing some interviews with other libertarians and stuff at the national conference. So I'm hoping I get some really good libertarian perspectives. And I'm thinking I'm going to try to grab, like, since y'all didn't give me any questions you wanted to ask, and these will probably be unplanned. And I might try to schedule some, but most likely they'll be unplanned interviews. So I might just ask questions like, what do you think? How do you think a libertarian economy will look like? What is a libertarian public school system, or what does the libertarian education system look like? So I'll ask questions like that, even though I know you've heard it from me and what I feel what it would look like. I think hearing it from other libertarian perspectives probably would be beneficial to y'all. I think it would add something to it to hear it from. And there's different types of libertarians too, and I'd like you guys to. I mean, Bethany Hatch last night. She spoke on a lot of libertarian principles, when she was talking about constitutional. I mean, there's constitutionalist libertarians just like there is within the Republican Party, and there isn't really any in the Democratic Party anymore, is there? It's just weird, man. And they'll just be so far away from our founding document. Uh, no moment, no movement that seeks to dismantle these treasured American legacies can possibly have a love of America at its heart. Okay. So, what'd you guys think about that Devolvey episode? Did y'all think that was good? Kid President? I've seen that the Kid President thing before, somewhere. So I think this is too loud. I think that's too loud. It's too loud for me, at least. Hold on. That's better. Oh, man. Sorry, I'm typing to evolve right now. trying to get another video out to you guys this weekend, hopefully. Yeah, but that would be fun. A lot of rules would be gone because they wouldn't understand. Right? Oh. Oh, man. So, what's he saying here?
The legacies of every person
He's reading.
on Mount Rushmore. They defile the memory of Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, and Roosevelt. Today, we will set history and history's records straight.
Before these figures were immortalized in stone, they were American giants in full flesh and blood. Gallant men whose intrepid deeds unleashed the greatest leap of human advancement the world has ever known. What he's talking about. He's talking about Mount Rushmore. He must be talking about them tearing down monuments and stuff like that. That's... The left-wing cultural revolution will never be allowed to destroy our way of life or take away our freedom. No, because you're doing a great job of taking away our freedom all by yourself. Don't need any help from the left. Whether it's left or whether it's right, you ain't getting more freedom unless you vote libertarian. You want freedom? That's where it's at. You want tyranny and oppression? You can vote left and right. You can vote for them or you can vote for them. But if you want that, you got to vote for the only party with liberty in its name. Of course, there's a lot of risk that comes with that, too. You know, and that's what I tell people. Because I always try to, what? Why are people so against liberty? I mean, I've had flat out arguments with people about, and they're basically defending government oppression. They're defending it. I mean, and these are intellectuals. These aren't stupid people. These are smart people. I'm talking like, master's degrees from, of course, predominantly liberal universities. But, these are smart people. And I'll eventually just sit back. Because they'll write these really well-articulated, statements on Facebook or wherever. And I'm like, you're absolutely wrong. I just don't understand how we've come so far as a society that, we've swallowed the pill completely. You know what I mean? Like, we just take what we're supposed to think. You know what I mean? That drives me crazy. Is don't tell me how to think. Don't tell me what I'm supposed to. I don't even care if it's the Libertarian Party. You're not going to tell me how to think. When do we stop thinking for ourselves? Why are we constantly looking for our opinion? Constantly looking for our way of thinking, how we're supposed to believe. Somebody please let me turn on the TV or social media, and somebody please give me my belief. What am I supposed to believe? I'm liberal, so let me go find Obama or Biden and learn what I'm supposed to believe. I'm right-wing conservative, Republican, so let me go listen to Trump and see what I'm supposed to believe. When the hell do we do that? How does that make sense? No, man, put stuff into perspective. Use your brain, critical thinking, man. Figure it out. Think about it critically, logically. It's just, that's how intellectual people get twisted up into believing that freedom is somehow extreme. I've been told more than once that libertarian beliefs are extreme. Like, we're extremists. Libertarians. Extremists. Not anarchists. We're libertarians. But that we're an extreme. And I'm like, wait, when in the world, in America, did freedom and liberty become extreme? All we want is to have the mentality society has today placed back into the governmental system of 1776. Happy Independence Day. Think about that for a second. You know what I mean? Let's just do a little imaginary hypothetical here and think. 1770, we won our independence, the biggest upset in the world's history. The 13 colonies defeated the mighty monarchy of the British Empire. So, yeah, it was a huge upset, a big upset. We were victorious. We won bigly. We won bigly because we're America. So, yeah, and but what was it like? So they sat down, they drafted this Constitution, and the first 10 things that they wrote were the Bill of Rights. You know what I mean? Well, first of all, let's check out, well, it's Independence Day, so let's read a little bit of our Declaration of Independence. This should be like one of the most Googled things right now, because it is Independence Day, right? So the Declaration of Independence. So I'm going to read it. I'm not going to read the whole thing because I didn't realize it was really that long. But I will, the Declaration of Independence, it's interesting because it kind of mirrors a lot of what's in the Constitution. So, of course, they took the Declaration of Independence, and, this is what they said. We're declaring our independence because y'all aren't doing these things. So we're going out on our own. And, of course, those things ended up getting placed into the Constitution. So, but the first part is often used. It's what they're describing is why they're declaring independence. So that's often used to say, hey, we have a obligation to overthrow our government if it's no longer serving the people. And that's kind of what it says in the Declaration of Independence. If at some point our government becomes so oppressive and tyrannical that it starts to mirror, wait a second, it does kind of mirror what Great Britain was before. But anyways, so it says, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. So they're explaining why they're doing a Declaration of Independence. So they're saying that we want independence, and this is why we want independence. So this is why we're declaring. So that was the explanation for the Declaration. So, but I like this part. The separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them. So not specifying a particular God, but nature's God, the God of all that is nature. When what they're talking about is that freedom is natural. Our natural state is absolute liberty and absolute freedom. So that's what they were going for. At least as close to that purpose as they could get. There are a bunch of lawyers and intellectuals and academics as well. So, and here's the key. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. So, that's a lot. So they were saying is that it's the right of the people to abolish the government went over, but that the so it says whenever any form of government becomes destructive to the ends of securing the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So if government is no longer is no longer is no longer working towards those ends, then it should be abolished. It's the right of the people to abolish it and institute a new government, laying its foundations on those of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But it says prudence should be indeed used. Prudence will dictate that governments long established, you know what I mean, that governments that have been established a long time, where'd it go? Oh, there it is. I should go full screen with this thing. I could probably read it better, huh? So yeah, it's prudence will indeed dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. In other words, we shouldn't just overthrow our government at any whim. Hey, there's a pandemic. I don't like the government. Let's go overthrow it. No, it's not what we want to do. So that's what it's saying there. You shouldn't do it for light and transient causes. All experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. So, and that's kind of scary what we're going through right now. We're kind of accustomed to this, massive federal government power that it's kind of scary, but we're accustomed to it now. When a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces, what in the world is that? Evinces? Reveal the presence of. Oh, okay, reveals the presence of. So, pursuing invariably the same object shows evidence of a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. Ooh, despotism, that's it. So, I didn't even know despotism was in it. Despotism is the exercise of absolute power, especially in a cruel and oppressive way. And that's kind of what the British were doing to the colonists at the time. So it designed to reduce them under absolute despotism. It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. This is the Declaration of Independence, by the way. So this was what they were asserting, why they declared their independence to Great Britain. One, they're talking about the king of Great Britain. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. So let's look at that one real quick. He has refused his assent to laws. What is assent to laws? What are assent to laws? Royal assent is the final step required for a parliamentary bill to become law. Once a bill is presented to the sovereign, which is the king, or the king's representatives, he or she, or queen, I guess, has the following formal options: may grant royal assent, thereby making the bill an act of parliament. Okay. So he has refused his assent to laws, the most Okay, so he has refused the most wholesome and necessary laws for the public good. So, so I guess some laws had been submitted up to him, like taxation without representation. Probably that was a big one. I guess they were submitting laws up to the king, and the king was like, "Nope, I'm not doing it." So, I mean, we could see that going on in our Congress right now. You know what I mean? That's the veto. That's the power of the veto. If it is something that is good for the people and for freedom and justice for the people, and the president vetoes it, that's basically refusing the assent to laws for wholesome and necessary laws for public good. So, see something similar to that going on now. So the next is the king. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be attained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. So what he's saying is the governors basically took the power away from the governors and given it unto himself, to where that the governors can't even pass laws unless they've been signed off on by the king. And then even when it finally reaches the king, he still neglects to sign them into law. So apparently there were some British governors that were kind of trying to pass laws that would satisfy the colonists and keep them from rebelling. But the king himself was like, no, I ain't doing it. I ain't doing it. So next, he has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. So he refused to pass laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless they would relinquish their representation. In other words, I'm not going to pass a law that's going to benefit you unless you no longer want to be represented, no longer will choose to be represented in the legislature. So you won't have a vote within the parliament, because I guess at the time the British still had a parliament. It makes it easier to transmit legislation and stuff to the king if you have parliamentary people in place. So. Let's see, what's next? He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. So I guess he made them travel like long distances to reach a place in order to argue for their, it's like, I get, kind of like what they, he made it difficult for them to get to the place of legislating. You know what I mean? So kind of like what happened with the pandemic. Where I guess because of all the travel bans and stuff, it was hard for the Congress to convene. He has dissolved but that was for fatiguing them. He wanted them to travel long distances so that they were worn out by the time they got there. Not the travel bans was just, I don't know. I think it was just an excuse not to go to work, for Congress and the Senate. So. He has called together He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions of the rights of the people. So he's completely dissolved representative houses. So people who represented him, which was, I guess probably the founding fathers were the representatives at the time for the different colonies. So I guess they were trying to establish, I guess they had representation, but that it was being dissolved repeatedly by the king. The king has also refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative power, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions from within. So, he dissolved the representation from the houses repeatedly, uh, and then refused to allow anybody to be elected. So the legislative power is incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people. So yeah, so the legislative power is what they're saying cannot be annihilated. So there's always going to be there. So if there's not representation, then those legislative powers will go to the people at large for their exercise. So now the people at large are exercising the legislative powers that should be granted to a representative. So you can think of how bad that would be. The state remaining in the meantime is exposed to all dangers of invasion from without and convulsions from within. So yeah, if you don't have any single representative that's organizing then you're going to be, you're going to be subject to, chaos within and then invasion from without. I Got the Rock said, Q. Q to you too. You got your coffee? I got my coffee. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners. What? Endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. So they're making it, I'll go backwards to forwards, making it harder to get land, to appropriate new land. But the interesting thing is, it sounds like they were opposing the king's immigration laws. Like the king was preventing the population of the states for the purpose of obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither. So refusing to pass others to encourage migrations here. They were complaining that the king was not allowing immigrants into the country. Passing laws to obstruct immigration into the country. Is that not what that says? I'm going to read it one more time because this is interesting. That, this is the Declaration of Independence. Were they complaining about immigration laws from the British king? And I've had libertarians tell me before that our current system of government looks an awful lot more like the British monarchy did in 1776 than what the 13 colonies had envisioned in the Constitution. So he has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. That sounds an awful lot like they're complaining about immigration laws. Like the King of Britain had passed immigration laws. Like they were condoning open borders. Like our founding fathers said, you're restricting our borders from people who want to migrate here. Did our forefathers, were they in favor of open borders? I should probably Google that, huh? It's interesting. And I know the argument, but that was then, this is now, we live in a different world, and blah, blah, blah. We were a lot more susceptible to invasion when we were only 13 tiny colonies than we are now. Just saying. Where am I? He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. So, once again, the king vetoed judiciary powers. So, in other words, he said, no Supreme Court. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. But then they went ahead and established a Supreme Court that's nominated by the president. Of course, it does have to be verified by the Senate. So there's that, I guess. So he has made judges dependent on his will alone, though. And that's the thing is one of the things. Instead of looking at the thing I don't like about judges being nominated by the president and not elected by the people. There's a couple different things that there's negatives to both. So with judges being nominated by the president, instead of the president, I mean, if it was a libertarian president, then we would have Supreme Court justices that were solely focused on the Constitution and defending it and liberty, defending freedom and liberty. And that would be the arguments. But instead, we have conservative presidents that will look for conservative justices. We have liberal presidents that look for liberal justices. And so they're looking for justices that more conform to their belief system rather than to what they're supposed to do, which is defend the Constitution, which is to put any law or any case that comes before them and weigh it versus the Constitution. Is this constitutionally sound? That is what the Supreme Court is meant to do, but it gets twisted up. And time again, we see that with our laws. So that's what I think is the bad thing about nominating Supreme Court justices, the president nominating. Now, the president nominates and then the Senate has to confirm. So there's that. That's not a horrible system. But again, it leaves because we're so bipartisan. We're so partisan in this country with politics. It once again just, leaves it wide open to the Republicans are going to get their way, the Democrats going to get their way. That's why we need a third party, because it's just this partisan stuff is ridiculous. And then you got or like in the state of Texas, our Texas Supreme Court judges are elected. So they actually are elected by the people. And the problem with that is you once again come into campaign finances and stuff like that. So you'll have these major corporations or lobby groups and special interests that will pay for these judges' campaigns in order to get them elected as Supreme Court justices, so that laws and stuff can be, their ideals can be forced into the legislature. So what I mean. Like if I'm a pro Second Amendment, a judge, Supreme Court. I'm a judge, right? I'm not a Supreme Court judge, but I'm a judge, and I'm running for office for the Texas Supreme Court. Of course, any gun lobby that wants constitutional carry, for instance, would pay for my campaign in order to get me elected, knowing that I am going to support constitutional carry laws if they're ever brought in front of their court. So that's the pluses and minuses of that's the give and take of. But I mean, they are elected by the people, so that's the positive about elected Supreme Court justices versus nominated is that they're elected by the people. But the problem is the way media and stuff works now is the more money you have, the more advertising you get. So, hey Dave, are you starting late? Are you barbecuing? I am starting late. I haven't started barbecuing yet. I probably will. I just woke up late. Diablo 3's Season 21 started. I was up late. I wanted to hit level 70 last night. Trying to work on my Necromancer, and I was up late, kind of overslept. So, sorry guys. That's the life of a gamer, man. Just it's the way it is. So, but I did still wake up before my wife. The kids woke up before me, though. The kids woke up like 7:15. I got up about 7:30, 7:40-ish. So I think she just woke up. The kids just started raising hell out there, so she woke up. So let's continue. If I can remember. Oh, he has made judges dependent on his will alone. So that's and the thing is it's just interesting to look at this and see how some of it actually, some of the these are the reasons why they declared their independence from Britain, from the king. And it's funny how some of these things actually look like they're applying to our current system of government right now. Like we, as the 50 states, could say, we're declaring our independence because you're doing the things that the British king was doing in 1776. So, sorry, talking with my hands a lot. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. So I guess he's just started adding a bunch of new offices. I bet you the offices were like, he probably started adding stuff like Homeland Security and FBI and CIA and ATF. And oh, no, we're talking about the British government. So he has erected a multitude of new offices. It's funny, like the FDA and the CDC and the Department of Education and the IRS and all these federal agencies. So I wonder what the new offices that the British government had erected. At what point did the colonists like, you know what? That's too many stinking offices, and now you just keep eating our food, which you look at taxation is basically eating your food. So we're paying taxes for these. We as the people of the United States now are now paying taxes for these multitudes of new offices and hither swarms of officers to harass our people. Like regulatory agencies and licensing agencies and, ATF, alcohol, tobacco, firearms. Why do we have an agency for that when all three of them are legal? Why do we need alcohol? Alcohol's legal, tobacco's legal, firearms legal. Why do we need an ATF? A law enforcement agency for legal stuff. Why? You know what I mean? Just to harass the people. So that's it. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. So eat out their substance. So that's like taxation. They're taking our food. It's funny. Definitely applies. He has erected a multitude. I already read that one. Oh, okay. Now I said that. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. So that's funny. Our forefathers did not believe in a standing army, at least not one controlled by federal government. So they believe that the standing army within the country should be militias controlled by the states, and the militia was the citizens. So there should be no standing army. The citizens of the country would be the standing army. So in other words, there would be no foreign conflict. We're only here to defend our land, our people, our country, and that's how our founding fathers envisioned it. That the people would be the army. So that means, I'm not leaving my house to go fight in Afghanistan for a reason I have no idea. But, somebody tries to invade, our land, then we all, 350 million of us, rally up and kick their butt. I mean, that was the purpose of the Second Amendment. Everybody gets a gun, so that, we can defend this land of ours, this country of ours. And think of how unifying that is, you know what I mean, not to have a standing army. I mean, as far as technological advances and stuff like that, a whole different story, but the concept is real. The concept is something to seriously consider. I don't know a country that has tried it, a decentralized militia. Especially a large country. There's countries out there that have no standing army though, and they're perfectly fine. They're just very friendly countries. So it didn't work very well for Tibet though. I could say that. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. Oh yeah, so he was basically martial law. The military power was above civil power. So the military ruled over the citizens. They could do whatever they wanted. That's where a lot of the raping and pillaging and stuff. That's where a lot of the animosity between the colonists and the British troops came from, was because they operated outside the law. The military operated outside the law. He has combined with others to subject us to jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution, and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. He has combined with other subject us. He combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution. In other words, he forced them to comply with somebody else's rules instead of what they have already established. And unacknowledged by our laws. In other words, these were not something that the colonists or the representatives of the colonists had agreed to. For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states. In other words, like I was saying, that was a big part of it, was the military operating outside the law. They could get away with whatever they wanted. For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, so quartering large bodies. So this is what they were using armed troops for. They were using armed troops for cutting off trade with all parts of the world, which our government kind of does that now, but they just use our regulatory agencies, like the Federal Trade Administration or whatever it's called. It's the FTC. That was, anyways. And you got the FAA, the FCC. There's all kinds of F's out there, isn't there? For imposing taxes on us without our consent. So in other words, you're stealing from us without us saying it's okay. Wait a second, they do that now. We don't have consent to our taxation now. That. So they were mad because they were being taxed without consent. Do you consent to them taxing you now? I mean, and that's the thing, is that if you want to, you could say, hey, if you want to live in our city, you got to pay this tax. But that's never a question. It's never a matter of consent. Or if you're going to use our roads, then you have to pay this tax. That would be consent. You're consenting that I'm going to use the roads, so I'm going to pay the tax. I'm going to use the public water system, so I'm going to pay the tax. So, in Michigan, there was they tried to evict an entire village of Amish. So I don't know if you all know what the Amish are. The Amish are a religious community that does not believe in electricity, does not believe in running water. They live their lives simply off the land. They build their own homes and they live within these communities and don't partake in any of the. Are you cooking out today with your tax money? No. How would I be cooking with my tax money? The government already stole it. They already stole my tax. Taxation is theft. So, I mean, if I had any tax money, then I would just be refunding myself for what has already been stolen from me. But I don't collect tax money. So if you're wondering what the definition of taxation is, it is theft. That is the definition. So it's imposing taxes on us without our consent. That's in the Declaration of Independence. So I did not think I was going to get through this whole thing, but I still might not. Oh yeah, I will. It's not that much left. for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. So, in other words, these are all in reference to. This is in reference to the king. The king has deprived them in many cases of trial by jury. That doesn't really need much explanation. So. Right? Where's the Juneteenth barbecue? Should have barbecued on Juneteenth. There is a lot of celebrations that go on Juneteenth, though, that have barbecuing. There's lots of food and stuff. So it is a similar celebration. It's just not as, widely known. I mean, I didn't know about it until this year. So, we're also in quarantine, so can't really party a whole lot in quarantine. We're back in lockdown, I guess, lockdown mode. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. So they were loading them up on boats and transporting them back to Britain to be tried for pretended offenses. Wow. That's crazy. For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. For abolishing the free system of English law in a neighboring province, establishing an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule. So basically, they abolished the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, and then would establish an arbitrary government in it. And then let me get a good definition on that word arbitrary. I think I know what it means, but arbitrary would be based on random choice or personal whim. Yeah, rather than any reason or system. So arbitrary is just out of the blue form of government. And then enlarging the boundaries of that. And so basically they're going to establish a community here with some bogus government that he's made up, and then expand the boundaries to into the other colonies in order to establish once again that absolute rule by the king. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments. Yeah, so basically just taking control of the local colonist governments. For suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. In other words, they just came in and been like, you know what, colonists? You ain't in charge of yourselves no more. I'm in charge. So no election, no nothing, just establishing themselves as the legislature. I'm making the rules now. The king, he has used a lot of words we don't use anymore. Oh, abdicated, renounce one's throne. Fail to fulfill or undertake a responsibility. So he has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. In other words, that he is already, the king has already established that he is no longer the monarch of the colonists, and is now waging war against them already. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coast, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. I think that speaks for itself. Devolve 2020. Yep. You just wait, though. Did you hear that little jab Devolve had on G Liberty? I think G Liberty might have a comeback for that. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, deceitfulness, untrustworthiness. Ooh, there's that word deceit again. Cruelty and deceitfulness, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. In other words, the king's actions are barbaric and unworthy of ruling over a civilized nation. This morning he did that? Yeah. I thought he was editing another video. So I guess he's still clickbaiting y'all with Devolvi video, huh? Yeah, that one turned out pretty good. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. So in other words, he took captive citizens, colonists, and turned them against their own people by threat of their own life. That's what I'm talking about, chaos. Voting G Liberty. He has excited domestic insurrections among us. Ooh, this sounds awfully familiar of our current federal government. He has excited domestic insurrections among us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. So, in other words, he's incited domestic insurrections, and he's tried to bring on the inhabitants, the Indian savages. I mean, that's what they viewed him as back then. I'm not saying it was a Declaration of Independence, so. And remember that the rule of warfare back then was you lined up and you went toe to toe. You know what I mean? Eyeball to eyeball, boom, 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 boom. You know, back in the day, the old style way of waging war back in the War of Independence was, my army lined up against your army and we just bam. But the Indians, they hunted. They don't know nothing about that kind of warfare. So the Indians, the Native Americans, they were just, savages by because they didn't fight what they would consider fair back in those days. They had guerrilla tactics. They fought for their land as self-defense. They weren't waging war. They were fighting to defend themselves and their own land. So the only thing they knew was how to hunt. And that's the type of warfare that they used was hunting. They hunted their enemies. So, and that was considered, I guess, at the time, undistinguished destruction. Okay, so then here's the closing of the Declaration of Independence. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Let me read that again. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. I'm reading the Declaration of Independence. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. In other words, I guess they don't want their attention. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration, E with an E, Not immigration, but emigration. Emigration is the act of leaving one's own country to settle permanently in another. So it's the opposite of immigration. Immigration. And settlement here. In other words, we left our own country to immigrate here. And we have reminded them of the circumstances. So that was the circumstance. So that was the other thing is there was some promises made if they came to the new colonies, to the new world. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity. Okay, we'll look up magnanimity too. I think I know what that is. Yep. The fact or condition of being magnanimous. Generosity. So they've appealed to their generosity. Native justice and generosity. We have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. In other words, they've tried different methods in order to peacefully do this. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity? Wow. Consanguinity. The fact of being descended from the same ancestor. What? To have been deaf to the voice of justice and of that doesn't sound right. Is there more? It was used a lot back in the 1800s. Okay, let's read on. Let me read that again. We have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations which would inevitably interrupt our connection and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. So I guess they're saying that even family, even they've been deaf to the fact that we are blood relatives, that we are from the same ancestry. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. There you go. That is the full text of the Declaration of Independence. So I hope you enjoyed my recitation of it. A lot of interesting stuff. I mean, I like the last paragraph. Just basically, middle finger to the British Crown. We're going it alone, baby. We don't need you. We don't want you. We don't care about you. You ain't part of us no more. We don't even like you. We don't even want to talk about you no more. Of course, then we had to fight the Revolutionary War. The British weren't letting us go that easily. Kind of upset. Kind of damaged their ego. And these are the signatures on the Declaration of Independence. I'm sure a lot of these people probably did not survive the Revolutionary War. But from the great state of Georgia, Button Gwinnett, Lyman Hall, and George Walton. From North Carolina, William Hooper, Joseph Hughes, John Penn. From South Carolina, Edward Rutledge, Thomas Hayward Jr., Thomas Lynch Jr., Arthur Middleton. From Massachusetts, the infamous John Hancock. Maryland, Samuel Chase, William Paca, Thomas Stone, and Charles Carroll of Carrollton. Virginia, George Wythe, Richard Henry Lee, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Harrison, which are two presidents, Thomas Nelson Jr., Francis Lightfoot Lee, and Carter Braxton. From Pennsylvania, Robert Morris, Benjamin Rush, Benjamin Franklin, John Morton, George Clymer, James Smith, George Taylor, James Wilson, George Ross. From Delaware is Caesar Rodney, George Reed, Thomas McKean. New York had William Floyd, Philip Livingston, Francis Lewis, and Lewis Morris. New Jersey had Richard Stockton, John Witherspoon, Francis Hopkinson, John Hart, Abraham Clark. New Hampshire, Josiah Bartlett, William Whipple. Massachusetts had Samuel Adams, John Adams, another president, Robert Treat Paine, Elbridge Gerry. Rhode Island had Stephen Hopkins, William Ellery. Connecticut, Roger Sherman, Samuel Huntington, William Williams. William Williams. Oliver Wolcott. And New Hampshire had Matthew Thornton. So those are the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Hope y'all enjoyed that. This I haven't read it. I don't know if I've ever read it all the way through like that. So some interesting. And most people just kind of get caught up in that first paragraph, But it's interesting all the stuff that they called they called the monarchy out on, and how a lot of it is really similar to what's going on in our current federal government. Like especially the one about the multitude of offices that were created. I mean, if there's a multitude of offices, look at our federal government now. There's just like countless offices within the federal government. It's crazy. Can't wait for his comeback. Sorry, what are you reading? Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to go through the Constitution now one of these days. No, the Constitution. We could go through the first. I would like to do. I'd like to do a live on the just the Bill of Rights. You know what I mean? The preamble and the Bill of Rights. To get into a lot of the like when you get beyond like the 14th Amendment and beyond, it starts to get into all these different legal jargons because it's all of these. It's basically where they started expanding the government. It's the expansion of the government. Actually, it started with the 13th, really. So just expanding on government power, but it really exploded after the 14th. So some of them are just it's a bunch of legal jargon. It's funny because the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, were written by a bunch of lawyers, but they kept it really simple. You know what I mean? The right to bear arms, the freedom of speech, freedom to redress the government, or freedom to, petition the government for redress of grievances. So it was really simple, the Constitution. So yeah, Declaration of Independence. Yeah, I had to look up at least 6 words while reading it. So what a better way to start out Independence Day than reading through the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. 244 years ago. 56 signatures. You think President Trump has read the whole Declaration of Independence? Analyzed it? Like I just did? He's We must lower drug prices for patients. How about if you just open it up to the free market and the prices will just drop? And quit regulating competition out of the market. Then the very next tweet is thank you to America's entrepreneurs, artisans, creators, and craftsmen. Yeah, thank you so much for battling the regulations and licensing that wants to choke you out of existence and still fighting through and getting your stuff to market. Not only are 80% of small businesses reopening, but new businesses applications have doubled. I don't believe the new business app. Who's going to start a new business in this? What statistic is he looking at there? 80% of small, but what about the 20% that close and never going to open again? That's kind of sad. I'm reading the White House's tweets, by the way. So always entertaining on 4th of July. So I'm going to get going. Oh, man. Let me see. Come on now. Computer locking up on me. Hey, inspired. Yeah, I'm late. I woke up late. My fault, y'all. So we're gonna go look at 1 Peter 2 for our closing scripture. Unless you got something to talk about, inspired. Yeah, I didn't even do a timer for this one or anything, man. I just threw it up because I was so late. So I didn't even put my music or timer or anything. I just popped it up, man. And went live. I had my coffee. I was ready to go. I didn't do my prayer, though. I usually say a little prayer before every stream, so I did kind of neglect there. So, but hopefully it was still inspiring. It was pretty good reading through the Declaration of Independence, and you can see through the wording in it how religious the founding fathers were. The 56 people signed on to die, basically at the hands of the British government. Not many of them probably survived. I wonder how many of those 56 actually were able to actually see their freedom. Let's see if I can Google that one and find out real quick. I'm really curious about that. You know, how many were signing their death warrant when they signed the Declaration of Independence? Signers of the Declaration of Independence. Nine of them. 9 of the 56 fought and died from wounds or hardships of the Revolutionary War. Wow, I thought it'd be more. They signed and they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. What kind of men were they? So out of the 56, 9 of them never saw their freedom. I think that's pretty impressive. I thought it would be a lot more. 5 of the signers were captured by British as traitors and tortured before they died. 12 had their homes ransacked and burned. 2 lost their sons in the Revolutionary Army. Another had 2 sons captured. 9 of the 56 fought and died from wounds or hardships of the Revolutionary War. They signed and pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. What kind of men were they? 24 were lawyers and jurists. 11 were merchants. 9 were farmers and large plantation owners. Men of means, well educated. But they signed the Declaration of Independence knowing full well that the penalty would be death if they were captured. Carter Braxton of Virginia, a wealthy planter and trader, saw his ships swept from the seas by the British Navy. He sold his home and properties to pay his debts and died in rags. Thomas McKern was so hounded by the British that he was forced to move his family almost constantly. He served in the Congress without pay, and his family was kept in hiding. His possessions were taken from him, and poverty was his reward. Vandals or soldiers or both looted the properties of Ellery, Clymer, Hall, Walton, Gwinnett, Hayward, Rutledge, and Middleton. At the Battle of Yorktown, Thomas Neilson Jr. noted that the British General Cornwallis had taken over the Neilson home, his own home, for his headquarters. The owner quietly urged General George Washington to open fire. The home was destroyed, and Neilson died bankrupt. Francis Lewis had his home and properties destroyed. The enemy jailed his wife, and she died within a few months. John Hart was driven from his wife's bedside as she was dying. Their 13 children fled for their lives. His fields and his grist mill were laid to waste. For more than a year he lived in forest and caves, returning home to find his wife dead and his children vanished. A few weeks later he died from exhaustion and a broken heart. Norris and Livingston suffered similar fates. Such were the stories and sacrifices of the American Revolution. These were not wild-eyed, rabble-rousing ruffians. They were soft-spoken men of means and education. They had security, but they valued liberty more. Standing tall, straight, and unwavering, they pledged, for the support of this declaration, with firm reliance on the protection of the divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Wow. I'm going to tweet that out. The price they paid, man. The price they paid for freedom and liberty that we take for granted now, that we aren't even willing to stand up for, that we vote in fear of one side or another rather than voting for the true voice of liberty. We vote out of fear for more tyranny, more oppression, more government, more. But these guys were willing. Only 9 died, but a lot more than that lost their lives. And they were willing to. They put it out there just for liberty, so we could have this. We could have this country that we have now. Barbecue. Pay a little tribute to these guys. These 56 that were willing to pay the ultimate price. Some did. Some paid worse than just death. I'm gonna post this up on Facebook and Twitter and stuff. If y'all follow me on Twitter, it's posted above me at Libertarian, at Dave Libertarian. I don't know why Twitter flipped my name around, but so I'll post a link to this. This was written by Michael W. Smith, and back in 4th of July 2015. So it's a time to regurgitate this for sure. I'm gonna put it up right now. Actually, I'll post it up in the description as well. The link to it. I don't even have anything on the. Matter of fact, I'm gonna have to edit this whole description. So, you know, I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna edit the whole description. Let me go ahead. I'll do it now. I'm just sitting here, so. Man, I cannot spell this morning. Uh, yeah, inspired. That was pretty emotional. I didn't even think that. Here I was. I was just saying, oh, only nine. I thought, man, I thought it'd be more. But man, the nine died. But the horrors that were inflicted upon the others, so many of the others, and these are names that we don't know. This isn't Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, all the people who made it out okay. You know what I mean? They made it out okay. But what about the ones who didn't? Those are the ones that are forgotten. Should we really forget about them? I mean, I don't, uh, you know, forget about Carter Braxton, Thomas McKern, you know, Ellery Clymer, Hall, Walton, Gwinnett, Hayward, Rutledge, Middleton, all these names that we don't know. They're not up on Mount Rushmore. Their faces aren't up there. Why? Because they died in poverty. Because they had their plantations and their wealth snatched away during the Revolutionary War. They lost their lives and their family died of exhaustion and broken hearts. That there's no monument to them for people to tip over. They were just patriots. They didn't die for a legacy. They died for liberty. Wow. Um, I'll continue the. I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna make a good thumbnail for this, and I'll edit it and everything much better, and then fix it all up. Actually, I'm probably just gonna do a thumbnail for it. Keep messing up. That'll do for now, I guess. So yeah, I copied the link is now in the description. Here it is if y'all want that letter um, in chat. So okay. I will never conform to the dark side, Yoda. Never. Did we send you a we will have the first galactic empire. Did we send you Did I send you a the proof of it? Because I know my wife had worked on a proof of a shirt for you. Uh, and I thought I emailed it back to you, the proof. So did you? And I don't think I got a reply because I did because I emailed you and Mark and one other the Michael from the Netherlands. I emailed all of you with proofs of the shirts looking for approval, and I never got an approval back. So I never got, hey, thumbs up, I like it, because then my wife go ahead and print it up. I don't know. So I'm going to wrap this thing up. So, Yoda, shoot me an email because I know she did something, and I'll see if she still has it. Shoot me an email and remind me, and I'll shoot you the proof back. And then if you like it, just make sure I got a size and a place to mail it, man. And once you give me the approval, then you can, with your approval, you can just give me the address, and we'll shoot it out to you and what size you need. So yeah, just let me know because I know she picked one of the pictures that would be easiest for her to do on vinyl, and I think it was on vinyl. I don't know. She does the t-shirt making thing. But yeah, let me know and shoot me an email to remind me, and I'll send you that proof back because I think I might still have it on my computer. It's been a while though. So, anyways, First Peter. That's what I wanted to go through was First Peter 2 and 16. So, First Peter chapter 2. Chapter 2 and 16. Oh, figures I already have it highlighted. Live as 2 and 16 says, I always like going back to the scripture just before because I think a lot of stuff gets taken out of context sometimes because you don't read the scripture before and the scripture after. They just give you that one scripture. So I like to read the scripture before and the scripture after when I'm after. So I'm looking at 2:16. So we'll start at 15. For this is the will of God, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. I like that. By doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. Live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants to God. And then 17 is honor everyone, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the emperor. So 2 Peter says honor the emperor. So that often gets used against libertarians too. You're not honoring the emperor. Well, we know. Fear God, honor the emperor. It says honor everyone first. If you notice in 17, it says honor everyone, love the brotherhood, fear God, and honor the emperor. So, of course, the emperor being part of everyone, you would honor him. So, but live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God. It's not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil. Not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil. But living as servants of God. And what do we do as servants of God? As servants of God, we serve each other. We serve one another. We love our neighbor. We treat people as Christ treated people. So that's what we do as servants of God. And there's no room for using your freedom and liberty for evil. You use your freedom and liberty to help and support and love one another. So and honor God in all that we do. So that's it for me. I'm going to wrap this up and get going, guys. Enjoy my 4th of July. I hope you liked the stream. I think it came out really well. I think we went through a lot of stuff. Appreciate it. Enjoy your 4th of July. Enjoy your Independence Day. Raise a toast to our founding fathers who sacrificed so much for us in order to enjoy the freedoms and liberties that we have now. And remember their sacrifice when it comes November and you're thinking about how much liberty we still have left. I encourage you to read over the Declaration of Independence one more time on your own, and the Constitution and those founding documents of this great experiment in democracy and free people and citizen representation. And that's what this day should be all about. Barbecues and brews and talking about how far we've come as a country, celebrating freedom and celebrating liberty, which just seems really counter to what is going on right now with all these emergency orders and pandemics and stuff. But we need to get back to that. So let's remember it and let's keep it in the forefront of our minds so that we can hopefully eliminate the ability to oppress our liberties again. So thank you so much, y'all. I love y'all. Keep it positive. Love your love your neighbor. KIP, keep it positive. God bless you all and go in peace.